this group of medical staff decided that it was funny to post on social media patient's VD that was left in a medical chair. In Sansum Clinic, located in Santa Barbara, California, this group of people decided to say, "Are your patients allowed to leave you guys gifts?" Then they decide to post a series of pictures where they posed, gave their best smiles next to this chair where you see a wet spot, which could maybe not even be VD. Maybe they did it purposely just to wet the spot. But regardless, this is very insensitive for people who go to the doctor thinking that they're, being checked. And then to see that that same clinic where they go, their staff is posting this on social media.
If you're a nurse or healthcare professional, did this make you mad? Because it should. You guys are supposed to be some of the most educated people in our society. A lot of us are already worried that you're talking about us like mean girls and mean guys at the nurses' station behind our backs. You guys have passed exams, gone through hours of hard school, med school, nursing school, gotten your licenses, and then you go and do dumb stuff like this. Like, do you need help? Are you okay?
These women are just weird. They clearly do not like their jobs. They do not like fellow women.
It is difficult to put in words the level of betrayal that women across California and across the internet felt when they discovered that the very healthcare professionals entrusted with safeguarding their dignity had instead chosen to exploit their most vulnerable moments for entertainment. Because the single most disgraceful incident at the center of this case was a TikTok carousel posted by employees at Sansum Clinic in Santa Barbara, California, where 8 health workers, 4 men and 4 women, mocked the natural bodily fluids left behind during cervical smear tests, turning them into a public guessing game captioned "Guess the Substance." And in that moment, the shame that women had carried privately for decades was weaponized by the very people who were supposed to protect. This is shocking not only because it reduces a vital, life-saving medical procedure into a crude spectacle, but because it lays bare the darkest question of all. If these trained medical professionals found humor in patient vulnerability, what else have they laughed at, recorded, or shared behind the closed doors of the clinic?
Guys, you can't even go and get a smear test without fear that you're going to be ripped to shit on TikTok. This clinic, based in Santa Barbara, formerly known as Sutter Health but now Sansum Clinic, posted these images on a TikTok photo carousel. The first slide read, "Are patients allowed to leave you guys gifts?" And then it's just all the medical workers making fun of the stains left behind on the paper that is sat down for the women during their smear test. Do you know what the caption was? Guess the substance. I vote for a new game. Guess who's going to be losing their job? Everyone that has been pictured in this TikTok is now on administrative leave. How scary is it that medical professionals sat round and had a conversation and thought it would be a good and funny idea to make fun of people going for their smear test, which is already a thing that women are absolutely terrified of going to do, for this exact reason.
The case before us is the People versus Sansum Clinic, a branch operating under Starter Health, where the defendants are not just a handful of rogue employees, but a culture of negligence, carelessness, and disrespect toward patients whose very lives depend on preventive screenings like cervical exams. Smear tests, also known as cervical screenings, are already shrouded in embarrassment, discomfort, and stigma for countless women. The procedure, though simple in medical terms, requires a woman to expose her most intimate body parts to a stranger, often while grappling with shame, anxiety, or fear of diagnosis. Yet despite these hurdles, women continue to endure the test because it saves lives. It detects HPV, it identifies abnormal cells, and it prevents cervical cancer. The charges against Sansum Clinic are serious and numerous. Charge 1: patient humiliation, turning private medical residue into public mockery. Charge 2: breach of trust, violating the sacred doctor-patient relationship that is built on confidentiality. Charge 3: ethical negligence, choosing social media clout over professional standards. Charge 4: collective failure. Not a single employee intervened to stop the carousel from being filmed and posted. At first, the TikTok audience may have dismissed it as a crude joke, but as the images spread, outrage swirled into a wave of condemnation, with women across the world saying the same thing. If even my gynecologist is laughing at me, then where am I safe? Exhibit A. The stage was set on TikTok, where a user named Angie and Kat, a colleague of the staff, uploaded the carousel that would ignite this scandal. 8 employees dressed in scrubs lined up for a photo, not during an after-hours party or private gathering, but in what appeared to be their actual place of work, making the decision all the more disturbing. The captions read with smug humor. Are patients allowed to leave you guys gifts? Slide 2. Yes. Slide 3. And we love them so much. Slide 4. All shapes and sizes. Slide 5. All shades and opacity. Slide 6. Make sure to leave your health workers sweet gifts like these. And in those slides, the so-called gifts were nothing more than the stains left on exam table paper after women endured a smear test. Blood, discharge, lubricant gel applied by the very clinicians mocking it.
The healthcare providers who thought it'd be a great idea to post photos of what their patients left behind on an exam table paper after a sensitive exam. What is wrong with you? We live in a time where patients don't trust us, and you just gave them another reason not to. You know that these exams put patients in a vulnerable position, and a lot of them do not like these exams. They already feel uncomfortable. They feel uncomfortable with themselves. They feel uncomfortable with somebody looking, and here you are just putting it on the internet, thinking it was funny. What a massive breach of trust. What a massive breach of professional ethics. What was this for? It wasn't for education. No. Was it for likes? Was it for views? Tell me, what made you think it was a good idea to post that?
What was framed as light-hearted was in fact a calculated act of degradation, one that reduced something profoundly medical and deeply personal into a grotesque slideshow for internet laughs. It was not a harmless prank. It was a direct violation of professional boundaries and distortion of the sacred trust that patients extend to their caregivers. This wasn't just cruel, it was dangerous. By mocking these fluids, the staff confirmed the very fears women whisper about in waiting rooms. What if they laugh at me? And here, in bright TikTok colors, the answer was horrifyingly clear. They already are. In that moment, dignity was stripped away, and a fundamental trust between patient and provider was shattered. Women who already wrestled with fear of judgment now had visible proof that judgment wasn't just imagined, it was documented, shared, and celebrated by the people paid to care for them.
If you're a nurse or healthcare professional, did this make you mad? Because it should. You guys are supposed to be some of the most educated people in our society. A lot of us are already worried that you're talking about us like mean girls and mean guys at the nurses' station behind our backs. You guys have passed exams, gone through hours of hard school, med school, nursing school, gotten your licenses, and then you go and do dumb stuff like this. Like, do you need help? Are you okay? The fact that it's 2025 and your employers need to put in your handbook that your industry specifically and TikTok and social media don't play well together, you dum-dum. And for the record, as somebody who's been to the OBGYN many times, having had 3 C-sections, that liquid on the paper that's left over was not a gift for you. You did that. That's your jelly that you applied during the exam. So how dare you try and joke about it and shame us for our bodies? We're already having a hard time going and spreading our legs on the table, so you just made it worse. I hope all of you lose your jobs.
The carousel made the invisible shame visible, immortalizing what should have remained private into a permanent online record. The carousel did not just expose bodily fluids, it exposed an alarming truth about how normalized mockery has become in digital culture. The laughter of those 8 employees became the echo of countless insecurities, reverberating beyond the walls of the clinic and into the hearts of women worldwide. It revealed how quickly professionalism can collapse under the lure of online attention, and how easily human dignity can be sacrificed when the value of a viral moment outweighs the value of compassion. Exhibit B. Healthcare is built on confidentiality, dignity, and compassion. Yet here, all three pillars collapsed in plain sight, not in a subtle or ambiguous way, but bluntly, in the most public of arenas. The betrayal deepened when viewers realized the mockery wasn't led by outsiders or internet trolls, but by women themselves, female health professionals who should have understood more than anyone how fragile a patient feels during a cervical exam, how much courage it takes for a woman to schedule, to show up and endure such a procedure, and how much invisible preparation and anxiety precedes that appointment. To laugh at another woman's discharge, to caption it like a party game, is not just insensitive. It is proof of internalized cruelty, perpetuating stereotypes that women are each other's harshest critiques.
To the Samsung Clinic and the nurses that did that very distasteful trend, I hope that you guys are having a rough day today. I'm sure that you guys thought it would be funny and it would be a nice little laugh, but a laugh to who? That appointment is already a very invasive appointment. Most women scrub their bodies down, wear the cleanest and freshest panties, and still we go into that office and hide our panties before the doctor can even come in. We are still in a place where we are hiding our menstrual pads and our tampons and not even talking about actually having a period in front of people other than men. It's like taboo to say the word period still because we are so embarrassed of what happens to our body. So to take that opportunity to make that joke, it was so distasteful. It was so distasteful. And as someone who has had a very traumatizing experience with a GYN who made a very distasteful joke to me about my body when I was going through fibroids, I do not find that shit funny. And to be quite frank, y'all lube the hell up out of that damn instrument that you have to put inside of us in order to do to do those appointments. So a lot of times what is left over is on the sheet. That was so distasteful. You guys need to go back to the drawing board as far as your training and remember that women are still very, very, very uncomfortable about having to do that damn appointment. Very distasteful. Shame on y'all.
This act reinforced harmful myths that even within spaces designed to heal, women cannot escape ridicule, even from their own gender. It was not the uneducated or the uninformed laughing, it was nurses, medical assistants, trained professionals who had memorized codes of ethics, who had sworn to place patient dignity first, who had been entrusted with the most intimate responsibilities, and who knew better, yet still chose worse. The audience was left to ask if these women saw no harm in uploading this content publicly. What did they say privately? What WhatsApp groups, what break room conversations carried similar jokes at the expense of patients who trusted them? Did they laugh about specific names, share anecdotes about vulnerable women in their care, compare who left behind the worst stains? Did they mock age, body type, smell, or circumstance? The unanswered questions deepened the violation because if this much was made public, one can only imagine the layers of disrespect that remained hidden. The quiet betrayals that never reached TikTok but may have scarred patients silently. This is why the betrayal cut so deep. It was not simply a breach of professionalism, it was a betrayal by women of women, magnified through the lens of social media, leaving patients to wonder if their caregivers were allies at all or undercover critics waiting to convert their private suffering into digital content. And in that wondering, the entire system of trust that sustains healthcare trembled because when those sworn to care become the ones who mock, every patient walks in with suspicion rather than safety.
Patience. Also, this is totally normal. They put a gallon of KY up your choo-cha for the exam. It's going to come back out. Even if they hadn't done the exam, this is also normal. Ladies, this is nothing to be embarrassed about. These women are just weird. They clearly do not like their jobs. They do not like fellow women.
Exhibit C. The backlash was swift. Outrage spread across TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, and countless online forums, with thousands of women and allies calling not only for the termination, but for license revocation, permanent blacklisting from medical practice, and even criminal investigation for breach of confidentiality. The anger was not quiet or localized. It was global, a collective roar from people who saw this not just as a lapse in judgment, but as an unforgivable violation of trust. Sata Health, the parent company, initially tried damage control, issuing a sterile, corporate style statement that sounded more like legal positioning than genuine remorse. We share the concern raised by a recent social media post at one of our care sites and took immediate action once we became aware. We take this matter very seriously and are conducting a full review. But buried in that statement was invasion. The individual who posted the content is a former employee. In one sentence, the corporation attempted to isolate the blame onto a single person, to present the scandal as the work of one bad apple, when the images themselves told a different story. 8 staff, in uniform, standing side by side, smiling, laughing, and participating. It was not one, it was many, and the public knew it. Only after relentless public pressure, media headlines, and advocacy groups demanding accountability did Sata Healthcare escalate its response. Sata Health has terminated the employees responsible for the inappropriate and insensitive photos posted on social media. This unacceptable behavior is an outright violation of our policies, shows a lack of respect for our patients, and will not be tolerated. But by then, the damage was irreversible. Patients had already begun saying they would skip smear tests altogether, citing fear of humiliation. Mothers wrote that they no longer trusted local clinics. Cancer survivors explained how hard it had been to trust the medical system in the first place. A life-saving procedure was now tainted by distrust, its importance overshadowed by fear that the exam table had become a stage for ridicule rather than healing. The fallout has already been devastating, unraveling far beyond the walls of a single clinic. For patients, women now walk into cervical screenings with heightened anxiety, whispering fears that their body fluids may become memes. Some are reconsidering screenings altogether, risking late detection of cancer. Others have taken to online forums describing sleepless nights before appointments, recounting how they scrub excessively, over-prepare, or even cancel visits out of fear that their natural bodies will be laughed at. The incident has planted a seed of dread that routine medical care may come with public humiliation attached for healthcare workers everywhere. The actions of 8 employees cast suspicion on thousands of innocent clinicians who continue to uphold compassion, forcing them to rebuild trust that others recklessly destroyed. Doctors and nurses now find themselves fielding nervous questions from patients asking, "Will this happen to me?" A heartbreaking reversal where the burden of reassurance lies on those who did nothing wrong. Professional organizations have begun issuing reminders about ethics, dignity, and social media conduct, an implicit acknowledgement that the trust deficit is now industry-wide. For Sansum Clinic, the brand's reputation is tarnished beyond repair. Terminations may close the chapter legally, but ethically, the clinic remains scarred as
and not employed with us at the time of the post. Okay. Anybody else shown is under investigation, essentially. Does anybody else find that really odd that she wasn't an employee at the time of posting that? She covered all their badges. Did she think that nobody would figure out who they were?
The place where women's bodies become punchlines. Families in Santa Barbara have expressed doubt about returning. Advocacy groups have staged small protests, and local media has stamped the clinic's name with controversy that no PR statement can erase. What once stood as a place of care now exists in the public imagination as cautionary tale of cruelty disguised as humor. For society, the deeper wound is cultural. Another reminder that women's bodies, even in medical contexts, are never safe from judgment or ridicule. Feminist commenters warn that this episode will set back years of progress, convincing women to prioritize preventive health care. Public discourse now echoes with questions about whether any space remains sacred or whether every private act is only a vital post away from exposure. Like a sentencing already unfolding, these consequences will not vanish in a press release. They will linger in the minds of women for years, reminding them of the laughter that once echoed inside examination rooms. And they will shadow the medical field with an uneasy truth. Once trust is broken, no apology can simply stitch it back together. Judge's analysis. The case of Sansum Clinic is not just about one video. It is about the normalization of cruelty in the age of TikTok, where even sacred professionals like medicine are tempted by clout, likes, and algorithmic rewards, where the lure of going viral can override the most basic instincts of compassion and professionalism. What we see here is the commodification of patient vulnerability. A smear test is not entertainment, it is survival, a procedure that determines whether cancer cells are caught early or allowed to spread, a procedure that often decides between life and death. Yet the employees who swore to do no harm turned that survival into a spectacle. This is influencer culture bleeding into healthcare, where professional boundaries collapse under the pressure of social media performance, and where the drive to create clickable content becomes stronger than the duty to preserve human dignity. This also exposes a grim pattern. Women are not spared even by women. In fact, female staff mocking female patients shows how deeply ingrained misogyny can be, misquandering as humor, echoing centuries of shaming women for their natural bodies. It reminds us that the problem is not only men shaming women, but a society that teaches women to ridicule each other, even in medical spaces, reinforcing cycles of insecurity and mistrust that discourage women from seeking the very care meant to protect them. And at its core, this case reminds us of the question far bigger than TikTok clout. What does it take to preserve human dignity in a world where everything is content? Do we need stricter ethical boundaries for professionals on social media? Do we need cultural restraining to remind us that not every moment is fodder for entertainment? Or do we, as a society, need to redefine the meaning of respect in a digital age where even the exam table can become a stage? The answers to these questions will determine whether trust in healthcare can be rebuilt or whether it will continue to erode under the weight of a culture that prizes virality over virtue. The verdict. After reviewing the evidence, the verdict is clear. Sansum Clinic staff are guilty of gross misconduct, ethical failure, and betrayal of public trust. The termination of their employment is not justice. It is merely damage control. Justice would be rebuilding patient trust, creating safeguards that prevent exploitation, and reminding every healthcare worker that a patient's dignity is not a joke. But now, members of the jury, you must deliver your verdict. Do you believe termination was enough? Should licenses be revoked? Should new laws protect patients from being mocked online by their doctors? Because the truth is, this case is bigger than one clinic. It is about whether women in 2025 can walk into a doctor's office without wondering if their private fluids are tomorrow's viral post. So tell me, what is your verdict?